This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
DR Congo President Felix Tshisekedi says Ebola outbreak should be over this year. World Food Program needs $40 million to assist almost 1 million victims in South Sudan. And we look at how Nigeria aims to bring more children to the classroom. Hello and welcome. You're watching Africa Live. We're coming to you live from Nairobi. I'm Hannah Viviers. Let's take a look at our top story. We'll begin in Somalia, where the Security Council has renewed the mandate of the panel of experts for the sanctions regime on Somalia until the 15th of December 2020. The Council also extended exemptions for the arms embargo and enforcement authorizations for the ban on illicit trade that could benefit Al-Shabaab and other armed groups. This will also see the renewal of the partial lifting of the arms embargo on Somali security forces and exemptions related to humanitarian aid, as well as the authorization for maritime interdiction of arms imports for 1 year. The Council also maintained exemptions regarding military weapons, technical advice and training to the United Nations Assistance Mission in Somalia, the African Union Mission and the European Union Training Mission. Well, we're staying with that story. We're now joined by CGTN's Abdulaziz Bello, who is in Mogadishu for us, and he joins us live for more. Thank you so much for joining us, Abdulaziz. The Security Council renewing the mandate of the panel for experts and the sanctions regime on Somalia. What is the reaction that you're hearing from the Somali government?
Well, just as you have said, the extension will run until December 2020, and that is quite common with the United Nations. They keep on extending these sanctions year on, and the Somali government here has strongly objected to this move. The government of Somalia, however, welcomes the extension of the partial lifting of the arms embargo that was enforced in early 2013 to allow the Somali government to be able to purchase light weapons to arm its various security sector so that it can be able to tackle Al-Shabaab head-on. But overall, the Somali government, through its permanent representative to the United Nations in New York, Abukar Osman, says that the panel of experts has spent millions of dollars doing research and monitoring the weapons flow and illegal trade of charcoal in Somalia over the years. But the findings that were presented to the Security Council do not actually reflect the reality on the ground, citing recent security progress made by the Somali security sector, especially in the Lower Shabelle region that has been the epicenter of the conflict in Somalia for close to a decade now. The forces from Somalia have been able to secure Lower Shabelle regions, strong areas where Al-Shabaab used to be to launch deadly attacks rather against Somali security personnel, AMISOM and its international partners. So the fact that it has been able to secure these areas, the government feels that it needs more support, especially from the United Nations, so that it can be able to contain the threat posed by Al-Shabaab. But instead, it doesn't want the United Nations to ensure that the arms embargo is still in place. It wants it completely lifted so that it can be able to strengthen its security sector, allow its forces to tackle Al-Shabaab head on, because Al-Shabaab has the same weapons as the Somali government forces. And for the government of Somalia to overpower Al-Shabaab and to take over control of security from AMISOM in 2020 or 2021, it needs a strong, reliable force so that it can be able to secure these areas. And also, the government's recent efforts to reintegrate clan militias into the Somali army has yielded tangible results, especially in central Somalia, where Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah, almost 5,000 troops have been integrated into the Somali security apparatus. So the government wants more support given to the Somali security apparatus so that it can be able to dislodge Al-Shabaab and be able to ensure that the whole country is secure from Al-Shabaab.
Thank you so much, Abdulaziz Bello, joining us live from Mogadishu. Well, an outbreak of Ebola in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo should be eradicated by the end of 2019. That's according to Congolese President Felix Tshisekedi, who said during a visit to Berlin on Friday. This is in response to the latest data over the last 3 months that reveals a steady decrease in confirmed cases of Ebola in the DRC.
According to the DRC's government data, the rate of new Ebola cases has fallen substantially in recent weeks thanks to the new vaccines and treatments that have helped contain the outbreak. However, during a press briefing in Berlin, President Felix Tshisekedi admitted that there are still areas hosting pockets of infection.
We can say with satisfaction that it has been eradicated in northern and southern Kivu. There are still a few isolation cases in Ituri province, but we think that by the end of the year, we will have completely eradicated the disease.
At a press conference attended by German Chancellor Angela Merkel, Felix Tshisekedi sought to dispel existing public fear and mistrust in eastern Congo that has hampered the response efforts.
No one should be afraid of the people returning from the region, from Beni or from Goma, thinking that they might be carrying the disease. Simply put, there is a facility in Congo and in the region, which means all individuals, no matter who they are, pass a rapid test the moment they cross a border. So, there really is no risk to have any cases here.
Merkel praised Tshisekedi's work so far and told him Germany would support Congo's efforts to end conflict and re-establish contact with its neighbors.
We view the first few months' work very positively, which is why I said we from the German side can open a new chapter, which in fact really is the first big chapter. I think the same goes for partners in the European Union. We want to be a partner to the Democratic Republic of Congo.
President Felix Tshisekedi took office in January and has tried to repair relations with foreign donors that had frayed during his predecessor Joseph Kabila's 18 years in power.
With regards to Ebola, I think this is good news. Like I said, Germany's role was decisive because Germany came to help the Democratic Republic of Congo and contributed towards helping us bring down the disease.
Sous prétexte qu'il serait porteur de cette maladie.
The present positive developments led to a statement by an International Monetary Fund delegation that it had agreed on terms with the DRC for a financial assistance package that would allow for the resumption of lending to DRC for the first time since 2012. Beryl Oro, CGTN.
To Ethiopia now, where leaders of the country's ruling coalition, the EPRDF, are set to meet. The leaders are expected to discuss next year's elections and possible plans to merge the coalition into one party. The move seeks to end the existence of four ethnic-based parties that constitutes the organization, which has been on for several months now. The United Nations World Food Program says it urgently needs $40 million to assist people affected by floods in South Sudan. The UN says close to 1 million people have been forced out of their homes as a result of the flooding across the country. CGTN's Patrick Oyet brings us more.
These people's homes have been washed away after months of flooding. The situation in South Sudan is becoming desperate. The World Food Program says the displaced need urgent assistance. The organization is struggling to provide emergency food, life-saving medical care, shelter, and safe drinking water.
We estimate that over 1 million people have been impacted by the floods. Many villages are washed away. Roads are cut off, schools are closed, nutrition centres are closed. At the last count, over 53 nutrition centres have been closed.
The UN says food security is getting worse. Even before the flooding, more than 7 million people were in need of humanitarian assistance. During 5 years of civil war, farmers were unable to cultivate crops. South Sudan's civil war has left the country with significant food shortages. Flooding has now led to crop losses, and at least 3 months of food aid are needed to feed the displaced. Some assistance is coming from abroad. Germany has donated $10.9 million, and Saudi Arabia has offered $160,000 in food aid.
Saudi Arabia always behind the people who need the assistance. There is no discrimination.
But the UN says that money doesn't stretch far enough. There are also concerns that the flooding could lead to an outbreak of disease and the heavy rains could continue for another 4 weeks. Patrick Oyet, CGTN, Juba, South Sudan.
Meanwhile, South Sudanese returnees have started making their way back home from the Democratic Republic of Congo. This follows the signing of the revitalized peace agreement in September 2018. The world's youngest nation plunged into civil war in 2013 after President Salva Kiir fired his deputy Riek Machar. CGTN's Wilkes Anyawa has more.
South Sudan's 6 years of civil war destabilized the world's youngest nation, leaving at least 400,000 people dead and displacing hundreds of thousands. But there is a ray of hope. As relative peace returns to parts of the country, several refugees have returned home in recent months, hoping to rebuild their lives. At least 7 returnees cross into South Sudan weekly from the Democratic Republic of Congo. So far, 1,251 households have been recorded and registered.
Sometimes a day I can get 3 people returning from Congo to make 2 to 3 days, others 2. So just like that. Sometimes 1 in a week, sometimes you can get like 7 or 5 people returning from Congo.
One such returnee is Victoria Emilia and her family.
We came back because we heard that the peace process was going on well. And we were hearing over the radio also that those who took refuge in other countries should come back. When we heard that, we felt happy because home is home. That's why we decided to come back.
Officials registering the returnees are raising concerns due to lack of basic services. School-going children are also facing challenges in their quest for education.
We think that it is our country, but to go and remain there in Congo, so it is difficult for us because the situation there in Congo is a bit tough. That is why it makes us to come and open our school to teach our children.
President Salva Kiir and opposition leader Riek Machar agreed last week to delay forming a unity government for 100 days beyond the November 12th deadline. The two leaders met in Uganda in a last-ditch effort to resolve outstanding disputes, providing hope to many like Ignacio. Wilkes Anyawa, CGTN.
France has set quotas or numeric targets for professional immigrants. This is set to begin in the year 2021. This is the culmination of several months of government reflection and a parliamentary debate on the migration policy of France and Europe. But how are professionals in Senegal perceiving it? Here's Cham Gono with his story.
In this suburb of Dakar, several families are directly affected by illegal migration. Some of their relatives left for Europe and managed to return, yet some never did. For El Haj Ngore, who is a graduate of economics and audiovisual production, seeking better options in Europe, especially France, is not a distant thought. And the newly introduced law by the French government to allow professional migrants to work in Europe is a welcome move. However, he feels that it comes with its own shortcomings. Well, he's not alone.
There is a serious advantage in this law, but this advantage is not a global one. It does not help everyone. The choice is focused on elites, graduates, and qualified people. But it's not just the qualified people who want to migrate to Europe.
We who are qualified, I think this law will allow us to travel better and take less risks such as crossing the desert or the sea. France, introducing this law, will facilitate young graduates among those who opt for sea crossing by lack of means to travel with dignity and legally.
For those who survive the Sahara Desert and the Mediterranean Sea, maybe this law will give them more hopes of pursuing their dreams legally.
Without qualifications or a degree, you cannot work in Europe. That is why we should encourage our youth to go to school, to be trained and to have a qualification. To develop a country, you need a qualified youth, and that's the reality.
France is already grappling with unique challenges relating to employment. According to the European Nations Employment Agency, 150,000 jobs fell vacant in 2019 due to lack of candidates. 50% of companies are still having difficulties in hiring, but migrants trying to access France and other European nations still face dangers and in turn caused a crisis in the European Union. Chomgono, CGTN.
Time now for us to take a short break. When we return, here's what you can expect. China and Ethiopia sign an MOU to formalize trade ties. And Nigeria aims to bring more children to the classroom.
Each day, there are millions of stories. Each one can open new perspectives, new possibilities. Wherever you look, we are there. To see, discover, explore. We put the pieces together to find what really matters to you, all around the world, all around the clock. Our reporters are at home across the globe. From our headquarters in Beijing and production centers in Washington, Nairobi, and London, China Global Television Network. Stories from across the globe, reaching people across the globe. CGTN. See the difference.
Welcome back. You're watching Africa Live. Well, Nigeria has among the highest numbers of out-of-school children in the world. The United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, puts a figure at 13.2 million as of last year. And this is despite the free universal basic education policy of the Nigerian government. But one private initiative in the country's commercial capital, Lagos, is now helping to address the problem through a program it calls Street to School. Deji Badmus has that story.
Most of these children could have been on the streets begging, hawking, or enrolled as apprentices at different workshops owing to the circumstances of their respective families. But the story is now different, thanks to the Street to School initiative. It's the brainchild of Oluwatosin Oloye Taiwo. In collaboration with a team of young professionals, she started by offering free mentorship and career seminars to school children. That soon developed into a school support scheme which focused on enrolling out-of-school children in private schools and sponsoring their bills. But with more children needing assistance, the initiative metamorphosed into a fully fledged elementary school.
We had a long list of awaiting children that we couldn't get enough sponsors to help them back to school. So we just felt instead of waiting until we get sponsors for those children, why not set up a school? We just couldn't wait because education cannot wait.
And it's not just these primary school pupils that benefit from the initiative. Street to School also assists some students in the secondary and post-secondary school level with free learning kits and registration for national examinations, as well as sponsor children enrolled in schools across distant communities.
Overall, looking at those that we've sponsored, that is actually close to, that is about 800 children for primary education and secondary education. However, with our back swap, this is an annual program that we also do. We identify with children from low-income, families, and we give them the basic learning materials. We give them bags. And that is why we call it back swap. We collect their old bags and give them the new bags. And this is what we've been doing consistently for some years now. And we've been able to reach out to over 12,500 children.
Children in the school are provided with free meals to help improve their performance. And for parents, the school has brought back hope for a better future for their children.
Well, as about the school fees, there's nothing like school fees. In the first instance, people thought that they are playing. But it will come reality that everything is normal. The school is very good. So their system of operating are very good.
But running a free school like this definitely requires a lot of support. And that is the only challenge now confronting the Street to School initiative, which currently depends on support from well-meaning individuals.
Where we are at the moment, it's not our property. It's on list. It was leased out to us. So we are hoping that we're going to get enough funding so that we have a space of our own and we can open our doors to every child. Education is a powerful tool that we can use for the development of any nation. Okay, fine, the government is supposed to do all of this, but the government cannot do everything. And that is why as an NGO, we are doing this. We are helping what the government is doing.
It's a very demanding calling for Oluwatosin and her team, who must always raise funding not only to sponsor the children at the school, but to also pay the teachers. But it's something she's always happy doing. Deji Badmos, CGTN, Lagos, Nigeria.
The United Nations Children Fund says that pneumonia kills more children than any other infection worldwide. A recent report shows that Nigeria has the highest number of children globally that die from this altogether preventable and treatable disease. More on this report from CGTN's Kelechi Emekalam.
Little Joshua struggling to breathe as he receives treatment at the emergency unit of this hospital in the Nigerian capital. His mother rushed him here following his deteriorating health condition. Doctors diagnosed pneumonia, a condition caused by bacteria, fungi or virus leading to the inflammation of the air spaces in the lungs. And the 7-month-old is one of those lucky to be alive.
I've been managing the baby by God's grace through different drugs that have been administered, and presently now I'm still on drugs, which is gradually I'm seeing some little improvements. The treatment has been effective. It has been very effective. Right from the onset, the very first day I came here on an emergency case.
Joshua falls within the age bracket of children who face a higher risk of the deadly infection. Pneumonia has been responsible for 19% of child mortality in Nigeria, making it the leading childhood killer disease ahead of diarrhea and malaria. Children whose immune systems are weakened by malnutrition and those exposed to high levels of air or water pollution remain the most vulnerable.
Parental smoking, you need to keep the parents away, from, to make sure that the children are not exposed to this smoke. Biomass fuel is another thing that is responsible, that's the risk factor. So we need to, as much as possible, prevent the children under 5 from exposure to biomass fuel. Then another good thing that can be done, which if we do very well will really help us, is immunization. Immunization is very key.
Every 18 hours, a child dies of complications from pneumonia infection in Nigeria. About 450 children die daily from the disease, ranking it the country's biggest killer of children under 5. Funding to tackle pneumonia remains grossly inadequate. World-leading health and children's organizations want governments in the worst affected countries like Nigeria to focus on the control strategies in their local and national health agendas, plans that would curb the surge of the disease. Kelechi Emekalam, CGTN Abuja, Nigeria.
This is South Africa now, where the city of Cape Town's new batch of seasonal firefighters is being put through the paces. This is aimed at preparing them for the upcoming fire season. The summer temperatures in the mother city usually come with soaring temperatures, which are often linked to forest fires. Here's CGTN's Travis Andrews with more.
Cape Town's fire season is fast approaching, and that usually means runaway vegetation fires and mountain blazes. But these lot are signing up to be on the front lines. They're seasonal firefighters who will assist the city to combat the blazes this summer season. And in order to be mission ready, they've been sharpening up their skills.
Over the next few months is our peak fire season. About 70% of the work the fire department attends to is bushfire. And over the next few months, what these firefighters are going to be doing is the bulk of our work. They take the pressure off the fire department so that they can focus on other work. Large, swollen, big
Their 4-week intensive training will prove pivotal in combating fires that can rage for weeks at a time and cause damage to property and even loss of life. According to climate experts, this year's fire season could see a record amount of infernos due to the ongoing drought.
Things are drying all the time, and that if you haven't had a fire for a while, and last year we had fewer fires, that means the amount of combustible material, the fuel for the fires, has built up. And if you don't have fires frequently, that means when it burns extra hard and fast.
Teamwork is also a critical element which is being taught, as firefighting can be a dangerous job. This year, 2 crew members have already been lost. For many of these new recruits, joining the service is not just about gaining employment. Many see it as a personal calling.
I've always kept my eye on the stream, and I believe being a seasonal firefighter is the basic foundation in order to becoming a professional permanent firefighter.
If you go out to a fire call and you're out there saving nature, people's houses, and it feels good to be recognized and also like helping people. It's more like a calling more than it is a job actually.
When I decided I want to be a firefighter, I decided I'll do seasonals first and get the foundation of being a firefighter before I make the big decision of being a firefighter, which I am 110% sure that is where I want to be one day.
Of course, one key requisite of being an active firefighter on the fire line is maintaining one's fitness. And judging by their capabilities, the Cape should be in good hands this season. Davis Andrews, CGTN, Cape Town.
Further afield in Hong Kong, violent anti-government demonstrations are continuing around the city for a 6th straight day. Protesters have been barricading themselves inside the Hong Kong Polytechnic University. They've also been blocking roads and checking the bags of those entering the school. Meanwhile, outside the University of Hong Kong, some black-shirted protesters have been stopping local residents trying to tidy the streets. Reuters reported that one demonstrator threw a Molotov cocktail at them. Anti-government protesters have occupied a number of university campuses this week where they've stockpiled weapons such as petrol bombs and catapults, as well as bows and arrows.
He believes continuous radical violent crimes in Hong Kong are seriously undermining the rule of law and the social order, seriously disturbing Hong Kong's prosperity and stability, and seriously challenging the one country, two systems principle. Facing the worsening situation, the Hong Kong government will certainly take more determined measures to stop the riots and hope society will return to normal as soon as possible. That is our top priority.
Chief Secretary of Administration Matthew Chung also said he had presided over an interdepartmental action group meeting. He said the government had appointed a group of correctional services officers as special task forces to strengthen the police.
The government's discipline services, including Customs and Excise Department, Fire Service Department, Government Flying Service, Immigration Department, and Hong Kong Critical Services will try their best to support the police to stop violence and chaos according to law.
Protests have rocked Hong Kong for over 6 months, and they are a major factor plunging the city into a recession for the first time in over a decade. Officials predict GDP growth will be in the red this year, shrinking by 1.3%. Let's review what's led up to the current situation.
Fires, blockades and riots have engulfed Hong Kong, pushing it to the brink. For just over half a year, protesters have been massing in the city in a movement that began over a proposed fugitive bill, which opponents feared could undermine Hong Kong's justice system. Chief Executive Carrie Lam dropped the bill just over 2 months ago.
Action number 1 is for us to formally withdraw the bill in order to fully allay public concerns.
But the violence continued, with protesters' demands broadening. And this week has seen some of the worst carnage since protests began, with 2 dead and 86 injured. Demonstrations flared up after the death of Alex Chow, a student who fell from a parking garage. Protesters say police chased him, leading to his fall, but police deny pursuing the young man. And violence escalated further after a police officer shot a protester, a move which a senior police superintendent argued was made in self-defense.
Because of the threats from two directions, and he knew if his gun was snatched, his safety as well as the bystanders near him would be threatened. Therefore, he decided to open fire.
Kong also says the protests have brought the city to the brink of collapse. His comments came just before a 70-year-old man died as a result of being hit by a brick thrown by a protester in the canceling of classes over safety concerns and ever more traffic congestion caused by demonstrations, sinking the city further into crisis.
Well, it's time now for us to take a short break. Your business news is coming up. Here's some highlights. Tunisia to modernize main port to boost exports. And women in Nigeria cash in on growing volume of nuts.
Images may appear to be identical, but looks can be deceiving. The difference is not always obvious. It has to be discovered. There are always different sides to a story. We put the focus on the details. To see more, to understand better. See GTN. See the difference.
Welcome back. You're watching Africa Live, your business news. Well, Tunisia is launching a modernization plan of its main port in a bid to boost export and maritime activity. The upgrade will help track containers instantaneously and optimize port management.
The main component of the modernization project of the port of Radis will be accompanied by two other components, namely the establishment of a smart gate which will help organize and plan the flow of goods at the terminal's entry and exit gates, and to acquire 6 new cranes to increase the storage capacity of the port.
This project is a real revolution for this port. Its objective is to raise this port to international standards in terms of transport and logistics, step up its efficiency, and make life easier for economic operators and boost Tunisian export, which 98% depend on maritime transport.
The project also aims to ensure the instantaneous tracking of containers in the port and optimize the movement of gear, avoiding unproductive travel, to increase the performance of the embarkation and disembarkation operations, reduce the cost of storage, and to better manage the flows and the port's entrance and exit.
In comparison to 2010, the productivity of the port of Radis has decreased. The quantities of goods were reduced and transferred to other ports because of the lack of equipment. The ongoing modernization project is necessary to resume a normal activity.
The modernization initiative is financed by means of around $27 million by the World Bank.
The first 3 essential components of the project will be followed by 2 other components. It involves the development of digitized customs management systems and the modernization of container removal system.
Authorities say that an electronic payment system will be made available to economic operators in the next 2 weeks. According to the Minister of Transport, the modernization project is aimed to restore the dynamic of the port, to step up its efficiency, and to increase the container storage capacity. The success of the project requires the involvement of all stakeholders. Adnan Shawishi, CGTN, Tunis.
The Nigerian government has been advocating for agriculture as a viable option for economic diversification. One such policy is being harnessed by a former militant. In 2017, Redson Tedeke left the creek of the Niger Delta to establish one of Africa's largest farming revolutions, valued at over $3.5 million. Here's CGTN's Kelechi Emekalam with Tedeke's story.
A team of employees at the Farming Community Center in Gate. When Redson Tadheke left the creeks of the Niger Delta to the north-central region, little did he know that he would birth the largest community farming revolution that would impact the country's economy. The former militant started the Nigerian Farmers Group and Cooperative Society in 2017 with less than $5,000 on a 3-hectare land. The farm currently sits on 3,000 hectares of land and houses a crop farm, a ranch, poultry, rice and corn mills, and several other units.
The technology that Nigeria has is not the technology of making cars and phones. The technology that we have is the technology of land and people. And so the aim was simple. How do we empower our people? How do we drive rural Nigeria to understand that if we utilize our land with the support of government, with the support of bank, we can empower more of our people.
About 17 settlements are part of the thriving farming association, and that has changed their fortunes since then. The center is valued at $3.5 million and has provided jobs for over 300 people.
This has impacted me in many ways. Concerning engineering, number one, because I mill in a rice mill. So even if my engine is having problem, I can solve the problem myself. Because I've been there and I've monitored and they have taught me, I've learned.
They produce between 150 and 210 tons of grains daily and could yield even more with a fortified system that supports farmers.
We must stop paying for land, right? And then building infrastructure. No, we cannot build infrastructure, buy machineries, seek for funding, and then expect to be successful. We must have a system whereby local, state, government and must augment what the federal government is doing with regards to provision of land, of rural infrastructure.
Farmers and investors here are hoping for a national integrated system that ultimately encourages more Nigerian youths to be involved in agriculture. Kelechi Amekalam, CGTN Abuja, Nigeria.
A group of Egyptian college students have developed an exosuit that can help carry up to 90 kilograms. The gadget will help prevent injuries caused by lifting heavy objects in factories and workshops. CGTN's Terry Wangari shows us how the $930 exosuit works on Grassroots tonight.
Finding innovative solutions to everyday problems. These students from Egypt's Helwan University have developed a mechanical exosuit meant to help workers lift heavy objects at construction sites and elsewhere. It mimics the movement of the human body during the process of lifting objects while enhancing its performance using the pressure of compressed air.
At the beginning, we aimed for 70 to 90 kilos as a prototype or a preliminary design. But afterwards, we aimed to develop it carrying around 100 and 200 kilograms. But of course, this still needs time. Its main use is that it can relieve weight off the worker, which would otherwise cause back pain or even any other injury. So this will help the worker to carry weights without feeling that he is burdened or without causing injury.
They were inspired to come up with the suit after visiting various factories and witnessing workers bear the burdens of serious injuries as a result of carrying heavy objects.
We wanted to develop something that would be useful to workers in factories or storage rooms. We thought of something like this, especially when we found that a worker can be injured or hurt when he carries something heavy. So we thought about preventing this injury from the beginning by making him not carry the weight on his own in the first place. So when he carries the weight, it is carried by the suit. It is distributed across the suit and the worker does not carry anything.
They are now planning to develop an exosuit that can carry heavier objects reaching up to 200 kilograms.
When we went to the factories and spoke to the workers, we went to many departments. We realized that most of the problems the workers face, which cause their injuries, is the lifting of heavy objects. So here we had the idea of making them this exoskeleton suit in order to carry the heavy objects that workers cannot carry on their own.
I saw the machine and it looks like a good experiment. If it's applied, it will help very many people. We have many people carrying heavy objects which tires them out. Some get hurt, others break bones. So if the machine is made available, it will be great.
It took the students a year to develop the $930 prototype. They are working on securing funding to support their upcoming research to further develop the project. Terry Wangari, CGTN.
Chinese President Xi Jinping's speech at the 11th BRICS summit has received extensive reaction in South Africa. South African economic experts have agreed with Xi's remarks that BRICS should show their due responsibilities, advocate and practice multilateralism, and create a peaceful and stable, secure environment.
I think overall, President Xi is absolutely correct. We are living in a very tumultuous global economy. We've seen the rise of protectionism, not only in North America, where the North American Free Trade Agreement was disbanded. We also seen developments in Europe, where the UK is trying to pull out of the EU. This does not bode well for overall global economic growth, and the BRICS grouping is one way to push back against that. The more we are able to trade freely, the more access we give to other countries in terms of investment, the better we all are able to drive economic growth. I definitely think it's a step in the right direction. Historically, there's always been a heavy focus on imports and exports and on investment. But in order to really drive growth, we need to look at different sectors of our economies where we can uplift people and create employment. So the digital economy, the green economy, all these new sectors that have not been a focus of the BRICS economies before should be pulled into the foray. The more we're able to collaborate on new sectors and diversified sectors, the better we're able to drive economic growth.
Well, more news coming up after the break, including South African exhibition reflects on devastating impact of Cyclone Idai. Hello and welcome back. You're watching Africa Live. Ethiopia and China have signed two different memoranda of understanding that could formalize and deepen cooperation on customs duties and agriculture. The representatives from the two countries said the new MOU would have paramount importance in expediting bilateral trade growth and cooperation.
Ministers of China and Ethiopia hailed the contribution that their custom commissions have made to promote bilateral trade facilitation and safeguard trade security. During the recent signing of the customs agreement, the ministers committed to a shared market development agenda.
The MOU will strengthen our cooperation in relation to questions like tax procedure, risk management, anti-smuggling, law enforcement, and extra. In this way, we can also enhance our cooperation with multilateral framework. The signing of MOU will bring our cooperation to a new height.
Ethiopia's minister said though the trade relation between Ethiopia and China is growing, there is room for expansion.
Once this memorandum of understanding is signed, a detailed action plan that aims to facilitate the implementation of the memorandum of understanding will be conducted. Based on this action plan, the two institutions will join their efforts and work in close cooperation in order to achieve the objective of Memorandum of Understanding.
This second MOU is expected to step up bilateral cooperation on plant and animal quarantine and promote export of agricultural products from Ethiopia to China.
We wanted to work on specifically on mango beans and the quarantine center capacity building, because they need big volume of exports of both livestock and the crop, but our quality checking mechanism is not to the level that we need. That's why this time we have this bilateral agreement together with Memorandum of Understanding. I hope if we will work intensively on this, we will maybe the market capacity is very big, and that would be the new niche for Ethiopia.
The leaders agreed that understanding the value of the deal will result in its rapid adoption in their two countries.
There is a very big market in China, and Ethiopia paid a lot of attention on it. The gate into China will open up, and we welcome Ethiopia and the rest of the world to sell high quality and especially agricultural products to China.
This agreement celebrated the growing strong ties between the two nations with a vision to expand. Ethiopia has benefited from Chinese expertise and finance in the energy, agriculture modernization, road construction, as well as airports and rail infrastructure expansion sectors. Beryl Oro, CGTN.
The Stevenson Gallery in South Africa is exhibiting the work of Nelly Gwambe. She's a Mozambican artist whose recent portraits have been influenced by the victims of Cyclone Idai, which devastated parts of southern Africa earlier this year. CGTN's Ulisa Jamela has more.
Caras is a Portuguese word which means faces. Caras' exhibition was inspired by Cyclone Idai, which occurred earlier this year in Mozambique.
It was one of the worst catastrophe happening in the southern hemisphere, and I had the opportunity to live it, not there, but in my country through the images, listening to voices from people who were on the spot, and I was drawing, and I felt I had to do something. Yeah. I draw the inspiration from there. Yeah.
This solo exhibition by Nelly Gwambe includes installations and drawing. The artist says she draws from the unity in abjection seen in the pictures to comment on the current state of humanity. Gwambe recalls seeing images of people that touched her to the core.
So I was sitting in my studio drawing, and I could feel the vulnerability of life, and I wanted to explain it through a medium of painting, which is what I do. And this was using charcoal as a medium and wires, because I find it as vulnerable material as well.
The Stevenson Gallery, where she has this exhibition, asserts that the cautious vulnerability of Gwambe's portraits is echoed in her chosen mode of presentation, installed with wire rather than mounted and enclosed.
I see faces and I paint, and I take wires and clips, and in a movement I try to create a sense of crowd, because I think we are a crowd, and the wires for me and the clips is how all is fragile. You know, it's how all can at any time drop down, and we so much need this support. We need each other, and it's about that.
The artist never went to a formal art school to learn her craft. She describes her process as one of finding ways to express what she sees around her.
Actually, by chance, I did not study art. I'm autodidactic, and from there, I saw a way of expressing what I was seeing, what I go through every day in life, what I see, what I observe, what I feel.
This exhibition is on until the end of January 2020. Yudis Jamela for CGTN in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Well, time for a short break. Your sports news is coming up, including Côte d'Ivoire host fellow West Africans Niger in first round of qualification.
How would you create your legend? On the fields, on the tracks, in the arenas of Africa. Were you born to be a player? Could this moment be yours? Sports Scene. Find